I'm running for Congress in North Carolina's first congressional district is because this district has always been there for me and I want to be there for the district. When I say this district has always been there for me, growing up on the family farm, my dad retired from the United States Air Force and we relocated back home. I grew up picking cucumbers, harvesting corn and soybeans. And this is a community that I love. When my dad battled bankruptcy and the farm going in the red, the community was here. After having a successful career in engineering, I used to work for Boeing in Seattle and I traveled all around the country. I relocated back home because my dad had early onset of dementia and the community was here for me. Now, I had to suspend some graduate programs because rural broadband is not very strong, but this was the community that stood with us. It stood with me when I lost my 5-year-old son back in 2012. And now that my community is under attack, I want to be there for my community. We're being attacked by corporate monopolies that are hollowing out the downtown rural areas. This is a place where you can't get health care. You can't get access to health care. And this is a place as well that the voices are being suppressed. This is a Republican gerrymander, and I'm standing up and fighting for my community because my community fought for me. Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm an engineer by training, and I spent 15 years as an engineer, and I've been an educator now. I've been re-engineering minds for 21st century career and college readiness and competencies. And so I love education, but my higher calling is I am an ordained clergywoman. And if there was a skill that I could require beyond the homiletics and going beyond the hermeneutics, is to really reach out and be a planner for affordable housing, to be a planner for that beloved community that Dr. King talked about for so many years. And as I look at universal basic income and compare that to the COVID pandemic stimulus checks that people received, and it empowered us to be able to invest in our own communities and be able to invest in downtown businesses and grow these rural economies. So if there was a skill that I could acquire, it would be a town planner. And in that town planning, I would make sure to fight for broadband access, internet connectivity, affordable housing, infrastructure investments that could lead to the people investments. And in a faith-based community, we have to understand we don't have to wait until the after while. We can have the heaven here right now. And that's when we work toward that beloved community so that there will be no distinction between the haves and the have-nots. Not because we've had a reversal of fortune, but because we have so worked toward equity building that you cannot distinguish those from the haves and the have-nots. We really need to pave opportunities for folks who are struggling, working class folks who just cannot make ends meet. And there is a more excellent way. We need to be better about community building. I ran away from this calling for a while. And so I went on a mission trip to Uganda right after I graduated from Howard University School of Divinity. And I tell everyone about that Howard experience and how it really grounded me in public service. But as an engineer, I did not have the flexibility to do the things that I wanted to do that related to community building. So one of the things that I endeavored to do, I was a seminary in interacting, and I had an opportunity to study. It was a coalition of Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And a part of an extension of that is I had an opportunity to go on a mission trip. And that mission trip, I went to Uganda. I went to Kumi village outside of Entebbe. And when we were in Kumi village and I looked at the lack of infrastructure, the lack of broadband access, I was, on vacation from an engineering job where I was literally doing high-speed internet search, supporting high-speed travel, supporting space station. And I'm like, wow, I had an epiphany. I had a moment there while I was in Uganda. I said, we can send technology to Jupiter and back, but we can't to developing countries beyond our borders, or even the rural parts of the state and the country and the nation, that are within our borders. And let's just really be honest, there is a whole fabric of communities, particularly rural communities, that have just been left behind in this country. And so when that hit me, when that thought hit me, I said, wow, I mean, there is more work that I need to be doing. And so when I left that mission trip, I spent about almost 3 weeks. And when I returned from that mission trip, I was sitting there trying to prosecute all of the patent applications, because by then I was with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And so as a patent examiner, I had this whole pipeline of patent applications that I needed to review and get them out of the door. And so I said, okay, I'm going to prosecute these 6 months worth of patent applications to get them off of my docket. And then I'm going to resign so I can move on to a higher calling and be able to commit my life to public service. I wanted to place service over myself, because I had a very lucrative career. I was making a whole lot of money. But at the end of the day, what good is gaining all of this financial opportunity, but not doing anything to make the world that you live in a better place? And so that was the moment that I decided to resign. And as I was prosecuting the applications, I'm gonna tell you this real quick. I opened up a patent application, and the inventor, I had been going back and forth with him because I was sharing with him he was not using terminology consistent with the prior art and consistent with the industry. And so he was trying to call a cathode an anode and anode a cathode, because I reviewed patent applications that dealt with electrochemical processes and microfabrication techniques for semiconductors. And so when I was arguing with him, he said, well, to the patent examiner, your honorable patent examiner, he said, I am the inventor. And because I am the inventor can be its own lexicographer, meaning that I invented the thing so I can call it what I want to call it. And so he proceeds to walk through creation story in Genesis with me. And he said, just like when God stepped out into nothing and said, let there be light. And so, Kevin, I was like, okay, Lord, you are really showing off, but that is the confirmation that I needed. So I finished my office action on that patent application. I prosecuted all the other ones. And then it took me about 6 months, but then I transitioned from engineering to engineering minds as a high school mathematics teacher. And I remember that day so well. Okay, believe it or not, I'm catching up on the seasons that I missed of House of Cards. It is really, really important to understand the dynamic of politics. Politics is a really ugly thing. And part of my commitment was to always stay grounded in my community. That's why I don't accept corporate PAC money. That is why I have worked really, really hard as a state senator and a legislator to keep my folks informed and fight for my people, fight for people over the profits of corporations. And so I've watched House of Cards, and on Wednesday night, I'm going to be honest with you, I do not miss TP's Sisters. I love that series. And I'm catching the final series of Blackish. I've always loved that. And I'm a big sports fan. So right now, whenever I can, I was doing call time, and I finished on time Saturday to be able to watch the game, watch Duke play. And I'm a Duke fan, Carolina fan, anything North Carolina, I'm rooting for you. And the exciting thing about having this background that I come from with 5 sisters and 1 brother, we are very much committed to our community and using STEM education to make sure we are inspiring the next generation. So I do watch a lot of tech shows, I watch a lot of scientific discovery, and I really analyzed yeast this morning before I was preparing to watch the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson in her nomination hearings. And so I just really keep abreast of science and technology. I measure success by being able to carry on the legacy of my mentor, Congressman G.K. Butterfield, and looking at the investments that he made in the first congressional district. Um, Congressman GK has a great legacy for civil rights and opportunities. And at the end of my first term, I hope to have achieved the unprecedented investments in rural North Carolina in the first congressional district, specifically working with farmers and being able to deliver for Black farmers who have not received the equity and funding and from the USDA, from those grants that they have coming to them. And I want to definitely highlight and focus on that. At the end of my first term, I hope to have accomplished much of the provisions that were in the Build Back Better plan. Those strategic investments in infrastructure to pave our roads, our fix our bridges in this district, but also to take on the mitigation that is needed to address climate change. This is a community in the first congressional district. We have the first town incorporated by freed slaves in this nation, and that's Princeville in Edgecombe County, North Carolina. As a state senator, I represented 11 of the 19 counties in the first congressional district. And these are all tier 1 counties, meaning they're economically distressed. We have a population that is 41% African American. And so looking at what this community has needed, I would attribute my success to being able to deliver appropriations that are necessary in addressing the flooding, the flood damage, being able to deliver for farmers, but also understanding the importance of quality education and looking at ways that we can expand on the COVID appropriations that addressed secondary and elementary personnel. That's very much needed as we are making sure our students can learn post COVID and understanding the need for technology, digital one-to-one, and a lot of students were displaced from education in the past 18 months because they just didn't have broadband. So that's what success would look like for me. That is the same criteria that I set for myself as a state senator. And every last one of the counties that I represented under my tenure became less economically distressed because I put significant effort and I was successful in re-engineering criteria and policies to make them work just as well in the rural centers in terms of economic development and opportunities as they did in the urban centers. So that's what success would look like for me. Okay, so my family has a huge faith tradition, and we have a lot of HBCU love. Of the 6 children in my family, 3 of us were engineers and 3 of us are educators, and so I did both, and so I counted both. So we're extremely competitive. So whenever we get together, cooking our favorite food from the places that we've lived around the world, because my dad was in the Air Force, and so we lived in the Philippines for a while. So we have a rich tradition of bringing all the foods from the places that we lived. So from Texas, a Texarkana menu, I love. Philippines, and also we lived in Idaho and North Dakota. And so we bring that tradition, we cook our favorite food. I bring in that Pacific Northwest flair with salmon. I used to live in Seattle. And so putting together that food, but then we always have a showdown. We either have a showdown with bid whist or spades. And so I love to run that Boston and have no trump. And so we sit there, we play our games, and we play Taboo. and we play Family Feud. So I just love the camaraderie that we have with each other. But we also take the time to spend about an hour talking about investments and wealth building in our community and in our family. And last but not least, we live on the water. So Lake Gaston is a big part of my life. And so we love water sports. I do kayaking, canoeing, swimming, and we're planning our triathlon. And so we're going to be swimming across the lake. I've done it several times. And so I'm hoping that after the primary, I'll have a little bit more time to train for that because I haven't done it in a while. But those are the things that we love to do with my family. We definitely enjoy growing up in this part of the world. I used to represent, I told you 11 different counties, but I had two different senatorial districts. And so there was one county that I represented in my first two sessions that I didn't represent in the third session. And I had an opportunity to go back to that community and visit and to walk into a room of love and support and enthusiasm from people that I had served, 4 years ago to say, oh, we're so excited. We know you love us. We know that you care about us, and we know that you're going to fight for us. But just to be reacquainted with so many good folks and to hear them talk about the impact of good representation and to be able to just rub elbows and catch up on what's been going on with everybody's family, what's been going on in the community, what's been going on the family farm. But I'd have to say that was one of the warmest experiences that I have encountered on the trail. And it really makes a difference when your constituents know your face, they know your name, and they remember how hard that you work for them. And they're committed into supporting you because they know that you will deliver for them just like you did before, and the time before that, and the time before that. And so really, truly, that scripture I'm sure your father has leaned on and reminded you of, that if you're faithful over a few things, he will make you a ruler over many. And I come in the spirit of Deborah. Deborah was the last of the prophets to be a judge. And being that she was a prophet, it's indicative of the fact that she had a relationship with people before God put her in a position of leadership over those people. And it's great to be reminded of that relationship and how relationships are so important when you're fighting for people. Because when I go to Washington, D.C. as the next congresswoman from this district, I'm not just going as Erica. I'm going with the hundreds of thousands of people I will be representing in the first congressional district. They go with me when I go.